Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, or whatever time it is in your part of the world. My name is Janneke Weermeester.
And I am Nastasia Griffioen, and welcome to the GEMH Sessions, where we invite experts at the intersection of design, art, mental health, and industry to talk about the complex interaction between digital media and well-being.
So these GEMH sessions are the result of the work that we've been doing in the GEM lab, the Games for Emotional and Mental Health lab. And at this lab, we strive to research and develop ways in which digital tools like games can improve young people's mental health. So before we start the actual session, we have some housekeeping points, actually. So how this is going to work is that our guest in a moment will be giving a talk, and after which we'll open up the floor for questions from the audience. And if you have a question for our guest, you can type along in the chat, and we'll try our best to get that question answered. And all of these sessions will be recorded, the chat window as well, so be mindful of that as well. And it will also still be on YouTube afterwards, where you can watch it back. So yeah, we're very excited to do these GEM sessions, but we really value your input. So we're just starting these sessions. So please let us know what you think of the GEM session by filling out our short 3-question survey. And we'll post a link for that in the chat window now. And we'll also post it again at the end of the session. So please fill that out if you can to let us know what you thought of it.
So today's guest is co-founder and creative director at Monobanda, Niki Smit. Welcome, Niki. At Monobanda, Niki explores and expands the boundaries of play and interaction, and his work focuses heavily on researching and developing new forms of play. We at GEM Lab have worked together with Niki and Monobanda for a couple of years now, most notably on a meditative VR experience you might know called Deep.
So in this GEM session, Niki will talk to us about some of the projects from Monobanda, which connect the human body, physical space, and the virtual world in surprising ways. And he will share his vision on how projects like these can help us, can lead to meaningful play, and how they fill the space between art, science, and education. So yeah, again, welcome, Niki. And now the floor is yours. So over to you.
All right, let me start up my presentation. Thank you so much for inviting me and for all the beautiful hard work. The viewers at home won't see this, but they actually sent me lighting equipment, a professional microphone, and a professional webcam. So we should be all up and running now, are we?
Yep, we are.
Okay, great. So I'm Niki Smit, and together with my co-founder Simon van der Linden, 12 years ago, we started Monobanda. And at Monobanda, we make play. And with play, we mean not necessarily games, because games are a lot of the time about our rules and competition and achieving goals. But no, I'm talking about play, being playful. The thing you do when you're young. So I'm really inspired by play because it is, for me, it's basically the backbone of who we are as humans. Play is a way for us to understand the world through finding stuff out, playing with other people. Well, I'm here with scientists, so I tried to do some research, and then I dove down into a rabbit hole of literally hundreds kinds of different play. So I quickly withdrew myself from that, because for me, play is a lens. Play is a lens for you to look at your internal reality and to your external reality. It's not a coincidence that every mammal, not only ourselves, but every cat, dog, dolphin, uses play when they're young. They use play to learn. They use play to learn about themselves and about the social connections around them and about the physical world around them. Like, oh, this is deep, this hurts. This is an act of social love. This is who I am. This is how I express myself. And out of that sort of backbone of human playful behavior, we make projects. So in most of our projects, the human body is central. So you either be playing in social space with other people, or you're using your hands, or using your body. We're doing a lot with voice interaction at the moment. And most of our,
Niki,
yeah.
have you shared your screen yet? Because I don't think we can see your slides, just so you know.
Oh, that is, I was sharing it. We'll do it again. Share
No worries.
screen. There we go. Thanks for reminding me. So are we here now?
Yep. Yes.
Great. So yeah, lots of different forms of play: rough and tumble play, locomotor play, dramatic play. Got a little bit convoluted for me. So for me, play is a lens to understand ourselves and understand the world around us. So yeah, most of our projects are about the human body. And then what we do is most of the time we create performative spaces, which means that our games aren't so much about achieving goals or winning or losing, but more about, here is a toy box for you to discover your own creativity again, learn something new about yourself, learn something new about the world, etc. And we don't have a lot of time to share a lot of examples, but I want to start with this one. I'm just gonna play it. So, oh my God, I'm wearing the same jacket as so long ago. Wow. So this is third. And this was one of our first examples. I think we made this 9 years ago. This was one of our first examples of taking your internal world and grabbing it and taking it to the outside world. So what we did is very simple, actually. We put a camera with a screen. We put a camera on the wall and we put a phone in a helmet. And on that phone, you can see yourself live from a distance. So it's a very simple hack. You can do it at home just with 2 phones with a Skype connection. Put one phone on top of the fridge and put the other in a fruit basket, and put that fruit basket on top of your head. And what that did is suddenly your eyes are no longer in your body. Your eyes are somewhere else there on the wall, and you can see yourself from a distance. So immediately you see a change in behavior appearing in the players, because firstly, they see themselves from a distance, so they become a little bit self-aware. You see their posture change a little bit, like, ooh, I was slouching. So you see them go readjust their posture, go stand up straight. And secondly, they suddenly see themselves from a distance, so they start to see themselves as a performer, which is also aided by the fact that they have a helmet on, so they are kind of anonymous and safe. And we put this in a lot of places that were not that playful, like, a big fancy museum. And still people started to play around, perform, use their bodies, just because it was so fun to see yourself on that screen and to see yourself from an angle that you normally can't see yourself. And another thing that happened is people started breaking those social distance rules. Like, people would start touching other people. people that maybe they don't even know, but now they are together in a game, and they suddenly dare to do that. So we saw some flirting going on. We saw some mastery of their new body going on, that in the beginning they were walking very hesitant, and after a while they got used to the third person perspective and they became more sure of themselves. So that was very inspiring for us, that with such a simple intervention we could really change people's behavior. And jump forward a few years, like um, like this looks like VR, but it's not VR, of course. But we always wanted to work with VR. And a few years later, I met an Irish game designer called Owen Harris. And Owen Harris was working on a controller that measures your breathing. So by putting a sort of belt around your midriff, he could measure the expansion of your midriff and through that breathing. So together we teamed up and set out to make Deep, which, let's show a trailer. So, as you might have seen in the trailer, Deep is a meditative VR game controlled by deep belly breathing. We made a controller that you put around your midriff. We measure the expansion of your belly and through that breathing. And quickly we started to work together with the Radboud University and started researching and closely collaborating on increasing the impact of this game. So quickly new sort of gameplay mechanisms that could help increasing the impact were added to the game. Things like mirroring and modeling techniques, by which I mean mirroring where other things in the world do the exact same thing as your body is doing. So you breathe in, your belly gets rounder, and around you there's all these plants that either light up or increase in size. So you have a feeling that, again, your internal world is projected to the external world, and you see your own subtle physical actions made larger and made more beautiful by putting this sort of poetic, artistic layer of diving game on top of it. So this is very interesting to me because this is actually the opposite of what we did with the previous example, Third, where Third was very much about expression, about taking yourself and becoming larger than life, doing weird dances with those helmets on, seeking out other players, connecting with them. But what Deep does is it uses play to turn the camera inwards. So you suddenly start to get aware of your breathing. You start to get aware of your posture. You start to get aware of, hey, if I keep doing this breathing, it actually does calm me down. So what deep does is actually not a replacement for meditation, of course not, but it could be a shortcut, because for a lot of people, myself included, those deep belly breathing exercises are kind of hard to get down, because we're not accustomed to breathe through our belly. Normally we breathe higher up here in our chest, and it's hard to remember to keep breathing down there. So most of the time you're breathing, and then you realize, ah, shit, I'm up here again with my breathing. I need to be down there. But because deep enlarges that very subtle motion of your belly to this whole world lighting up, and you lifting off the seafloor and swimming through that world, it becomes a very rewarding thing, and a very introspective experience to keep breathing through your belly. So that's what we're trying to do with that. The goal with Deep is to create an easy and playful way for you to become more aware of how you were feeling, and also how you can regulate your own emotions. Because deep belly breathing is a sort of almost, a volume button for your emotions. If you're feeling anxious, like my colleague Owen says, it's not a magic bullet. It won't dissipate your anxiety, but it could take you from a 7 to a 5. So this is an important project for us. So important, in fact, that we work together with Science Museum Nemo, which is a big children's museum in the Netherlands, to bring a physical installation of Deep to that museum. And of course, next to a hurricane, children are the most destructive force on Earth. So we can't have VR goggles in a museum. So we made this installation where you sit in a chair, and there's sort of this car belt that you put around your midriff, and voila, we can measure breathing again. And then it is a more linear experience where you blow yourself back into the world, almost like a little octopus going like, and that was very gratifying to do for us, because now suddenly we have this playful interactive experience that is about introspective awareness, learning more about your own emotions, but also giving you concrete tools, that emotion regulator, your breathing, to help you, and put it on a stage where a lot of children come every year. So we're very happy with that. And that leads us to the last example that we have, where we sort of bring the playful expression, the playing in the external world, together with the introspective playfulness, looking at the inside world, and bring them together. Because the last 2 years, Monobanda has been working on a research into body language in VR. And one of the prototypes that we made together with Improvive was copy-paste dance, where you could dance, but then also make a copy of yourself. So while dancing, you could record your movement, then step out of yourself. You would still have your body, but a copy of you would be there doing that little dance. Which is kind of an evolution of the first example, third, where you can enjoy the movement of your own body from another perspective. And that creates a very sort of open-ended chance for you to be expressive and to play with your own movement and play with your own body. So at the meantime, while I was making this, my producer on Deep, Sarah Tico, was working on another VR project, which is called Hatsumi, which is basically a VR version of body mapping. And for people who are not familiar with the term, body mapping is basically giving a place for your emotions in your body. So for example, a therapist could ask, where do you feel this stress? Where do you feel this anxiety? Do you feel it more in your chest? And is it like gritty or is it like soft? And what color would you give it? And in that way, body mapping really helps you getting a grasp and a good view on your own emotions. So she very cleverly saw that, oh man, if I could put this in VR with all the sort of embodied things that VR brings, I could make body mapping a lot more interactive and impactful. So she was making that. And then I showed her this movie of Copy Paste Dance. And she said something that drove us down a rabbit hole. She said, like, how cool would it be if we could take the drawings that players make of their own emotions, but then embodying that body and dancing with it and making copies of it. So how cool would it could be if you could make this joyous dance with your own sadness, almost like a way to get over it, to embody it. And that's what we started to do. So we are now merging her project and Monobanda's project, Hatsumi and Copy Paste Dance, into Soul Paint, which will be this 3-step art experiment where first you will draw your own body, your own emotions. You will be asked to draw maybe how you feel right in this moment, or maybe you're asked to draw what it felt like to be in love for the first time. And then you can embody that body and step into a more performative space where you can dance with it, make copies, make whole choreographies with your own bodies. But then also what we do and what we're really excited about is storing that. So we've put our work on festivals, and it's always an amazing surprise what people do with it. You know, it is very personal, it is very touching. Most of the time it's all these things that we as makers didn't even think about. And we thought, like, how cool would it be if we could then save that, and that you cannot only see your own avatars and your own embodied animations that you made with it, but also other people's. So like my colleague Sarah said, we're dreaming of this almost infinite terracotta army of different animations, all filled with people's own view and perspective on their emotions. So you could maybe have a gallery that is all about being in love, or a gallery that is all about anxiety. And then you could walk through that in VR and see how other people are experiencing that. And I think in there lies also a moment of wisdom for you, to see that you're not alone and to see that other people are going through the same things, but now visualized in a far more playful and audio-visual way. And I think it's play that unlocks these kind of things, where it becomes easier to let your guard down, easier to be motivated to be creative, less afraid to fail, more social. So if we take that human playful behavior and we connect that to interactive media, and especially VR with its huge embodied element that you feel like you're being there with your own body, then yeah, the sky is the limit. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we do. We work together with partners in other fields, so therapists, scientists, voice coaches, etc. And in that way, we view our process almost like a cave explorer, where we're going off into the unknown. We have no idea where we're going to end up, and with interactive technology as our torch, we go explore and then hopefully discover beautiful new places. So yeah, that's what we do. And thank you so much for listening.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Niki, for sharing this. Of course, some of us are already somewhat familiar with the work that you do, but it's still always so interesting to see and to hear about your work and about Monobanda's unique perspective. So yeah, now it's time to open up the session to a discussion, and we'll be feeding also some of the questions from the chat. But I already actually had a question for myself. So I think especially the process and the way in which Monobanda works is just super interesting, right? You start from that space of curiosity and play, and through that you kind of see different interactions happening, and that is kind of where the spark starts.
Exactly.
Is that always kind of where the process of your projects begins, or is it always you go first and explore things and then other people come to you because they see something in it, or is it also sometimes the other way around? And
we are not that good in the other way around. So if people come to us with a very clear-cut assignment, then usually that is a top-down approach, and then usually that's not the best solution. So sometimes if we find it interesting, we will dive in anyway, but then the project will change. And sometimes it begins with a little technology spark that we're like, ooh, we could use this like this. And then we start playing with it, and then it turns into something else entirely. So for us, it's just a thought exercise of trying to stay aware of what happens in the prototypes and how people react to it. And if that means that we have to change the concept or change the context of the work, then we would do so, because human behavior is the red thread, is the lead there.
Yeah, I think that's just a very, very interesting way of starting those type of projects. And I know that you've over the years have started working a little bit more with scientists and also with healthcare professionals. And I was just wondering how you thought about those collaborations. Like, what are the positive sides of that, and are there also any specific challenges that you encounter while going into those collaborations?
Yeah, that's a good question, because of course this needs to happen more often. Science doesn't have all the answers. Art doesn't have all the answers, but they're both about human behavior, so they can inform each other. I think we have been extremely lucky. So when we started making Deep, we already had something that was interesting for the science. So when the science came in, they didn't impose a lot of demands, and it became very collaborative. And I think that is the most important thing, that you have respect for each other's fields, because I've heard stories of it going in different directions, where for the game designers it was really hard to work with the scientists, because there were a lot of demands, there were a lot of lists, there were a lot of sort of top-down solutions of make this because we want to test this. And I think these two fields coming together require also a merging of the kind of role you have. So the scientist will need to become sort of the game designer, and the game designer will need to put some of their ego aside to keep the broader goal in mind. So I don't really have any cons, but I've had only good experiences of working with the Gem Lab. But I think it starts with mutual respect and mutual trust.
Yeah, Like I hear it, it's a bit more about just working together, but like you said, really taking and daring to take a step into the other person's point of view and respecting that point of view and finding the balance between that. I think that's something that, you know, of course, it's something that you always continuously have to try to keep that balance, which is not always you know, it's not always that easy because you're coming at it from your own specific point of view. But I think that truly is the way to go forward in these type of projects. Yeah.
So Niki, I see
yeah.
actually that we have a couple of
Ooh.
interesting questions from the chat coming in. So
Nice.
let's see about those. So I see that Hanneke Scholte has asked the question, are people only making one self or multiple selves that are able to interact with each other? I think this pertains to soul paint.
Yeah. So Soul Paint, we haven't started that project yet. We just finished a funding application. But if we take that back one step and we go to copy paste dance, where you make the copies of yourself and dance with them, the amount of copies you can make is basically dependent on how strong your computer is. So for the Oculus Quest version, you have a limit of 5 copies you can make, and then if you make a 6th, the first one will disappear again. And yeah, exactly, that interacting with each other, that is the most amazing thing. So for example, something I did, what started doing was, instead of dancing, acting out emotional situations. So for example, I was acting out a fight where I first was the aggressor, and with nobody in front of me in VR, I was just doing like, I'm gonna hit you, you know. And then I stepped out of that animation loop, which was about 20 seconds long, of sort of antagonistic, aggressive approach. And then I stepped in front of that person, and suddenly I had myself there threatening to hit me, which was actually, it made me feel a little bit like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. This feels wrong. And then I started to inhabit sort of a person that would be very threatened. And then I step out of that, and then it's like, oh shit, I'm looking to a fight, and I was both roles. And like the implications for that, I was immediately thinking of sort of role play therapy for I don't know, anger and abuse and those kind of things. And the fact that you can inhabit different roles and play off each other, and that once you made one thing, you can then step out of it and start playing with that like it's another player, becomes this sort of Droste effect, going deeper and deeper and deeper into a certain emotion. So there's untapped potential there.
Yeah, and it might actually be ideal, right? That it is you, because you've created this animation and it's based on you, but it's not exactly. I mean, you can't see your face, and so that kind of makes it perhaps in that happy medium of you recognize that was you, but it's not too confrontational, maybe.
Exactly. It's you know, I'm giving the most extreme example because of course it's most people make happy stuff with it, luckily. But yeah, the fact that those copy mechanisms are there creates sort of a paintbrush in time and performance for you to fill the world with, be it with happy things but also sad things.
Yeah, it looks like something that's so useful in therapy. Like immediately if you mention these type of things, and we're thinking, you know, perspective taking, insight, you know, all of these different techniques that you're already taught in therapy, but now it's more, it's right there, and it's with your whole body, and you're in it, and you really see it right in front of you. I mean, even in role playing, you could have someone trying to act out what you're doing, but it's still not exactly the precise, you know, way in which you do it. And here you have a literal copy of it.
Exactly. And to get back to your previous question, what happened just now, how Joe reacted on this, that is that collaboration, right? So the only thing we as artists can do is, I have this sort of, you know, Fingerspitzengefühl, sort of gut feeling of, I think there's something here. It's very open-ended and there's room for a lot of different expression. So I think I have something powerful here. But I'm like, I shouldn't make more conclusions than that. So that's the moment I try to make connections with scientists and therapists, to go like, hey, I got a present for you. Is this an interesting toy for you? And yeah, it's really about trying to make that web bigger and not stay in the little cultural art bubble and think like we as artists alone are going to save the world. I still think art can save the world, but there's a lot of answers out there that are not strictly in the art field.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it's so great that we, especially Joanneke, of course, have been able to collaborate with people like you on this stuff. So another question that we had actually related, it's by Nicholas Ballou, and he asks, with Deep, but perhaps also with other works, did you notice differences in how children versus adults engaged with the game? How does targeting children versus adults versus all ages inform your design process?
It's always different and it's always the same. So where it is always the same is children learn with a speed like 10 to 100 times faster than adults. So for example, with the helmets, with the first example, the helmet you put on, you will see a lot of adults just standing there, maybe waving a little bit, take a shuffling step. And then you have children and they're like, oh, this is my new body. Oh, if I turn to the left on the camera, I turn to the right. Oh, that's weird. And then I get used to it. And then I start walking around the space real quickly, dodging all the people, even though they don't have physical eyes in their head. You know, they have that helmet on. And they immediately take it as a physical challenge that they want to explore, learn, and internalize. And that takes adults always a little bit more time. So I think that's sort of, you will see that in every work. And then with Deep, it's a little bit different because children do dive in with sort of a reckless abandon of, yeah, I want to try this out. But their embodied feeling of introspective awareness is maybe not as well developed yet. So it takes sometimes a little bit more time to make them go like, hey, be down there with your breathing, where a lot of, let's call it people our age, I will pretend I'm young, will already have that context of, oh yeah, I've done yoga a few times. Oh yeah, I've been diving, and that really helps. So that makes it harder to see with Deep what the difference is, because there's always also that context of, yeah, oh yeah, I've done dive, that makes it hard.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that as well when demoing Deep sometimes, that you really see also for the adults, it's more apprehension of trying it out, and children just go for it. And really, actually sometimes that idea that, oh, I know yoga and I can do this, then they go into it and it's not entirely what they expected it to be. And then, initially they try to really just, okay, I can do this. I just do this breathing exercise. But then they're like, okay, so what's the goal now? And then you're like, you can go wherever you want. And I was like, really? I can go wherever I want? Yeah, you can go wherever you want. And then all of a sudden, there's a bit more of a switch between them. They really try to explore a bit more, just like the kids would do.
Yeah.
And that's very nice. And I think just a fun thing that's always nice to see when, especially with younger children, when they play it, the swimming that they do.
Yeah.
It's always so cute to see. Like, I don't see that. I've seen it once, like with one reporter that tried it out once at a festival a couple ago. He also did it, but it's mostly the kids that really just think, oh, I'm on the water, so this is what I need to do.
Yeah. And then they're instinctively in it.
Yeah.
It's also jumping on that. It's also a little sad, always, that question. of what is the goal. That
Mm-hmm.
when we were kids, you would just give us a sandbox, and there wouldn't be any sort of judgmental question of what is the goal. There is a sandbox there, you're going to do things, but somewhere along the line, um, society has instilled upon us this instinct of it needs to be goal orientated. And yeah, that is something that with a lot of Monobanda work, um, for some people takes a little mind switch, like, hey, it's you doing it, there's no goal, just go have fun. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So for us, it's our installations are, when we put them on festivals, it's the people that play them the most are children and drunken adults.
Because then the inhibitions are a bit lower and they're just,
Yeah.
Exactly, but
yeah.
sober adults have more problems, have more inhibition to it.
Yeah. So you were talking about, there doesn't always have to be a goal, obviously, for play. It just has to be about playing and exploring. And I think this ties very nicely into another viewer question we have in the chat, which is by Marlou Populaars. She asks, where would you ideally place soul paint? Is it something you envision in a therapist's office, or would you also want people to have it at their homes and play with it there?
Everywhere. So yeah, this is a thing that can be in a lot of places, right? Because it works as a fun thing to do really well, because it's basically an embodied version of tilt brush. Like if you thought drawing in space was fun, what about drawing your own body and then filling the world with your own animations, right? So I think just as a artistic consumer sort of piece of playful art, it already has its place. But then with the right framing, yes, for sure, we want to work together with care homes, with therapy organizations. So, and I don't even necessarily think it has to be changed for it. I think it can be exactly the same thing, which is for me one of the biggest goals. That you can go like, this is art, but this can also help people in a very concrete way.
Yeah, and I think it can have really different forms of impact depending on where you place it. Like, yeah, you could put it in the therapist's office, but if you put it on festivals and gather so much data from a lot of people, that in turn, it's not directly maybe, therapeutic, but it can influence therapy in the end, because then we can gather more knowledge about how people view themselves and how they view their bodies and how they view pain or emotions, and whether that maybe is different in different cultural settings, and whether we should adapt therapy to that. So
yeah,
in that way, the different types of places where you put it can have a very different type of impact, I think.
Yeah.
And it's clear, I think, from our chat definitely, that people are absolutely mesmerized by this idea and the stuff that you're doing, which I'm sure is lovely to see as a developer, and see your brainchild be welcomed so nicely into the world.
Yeah, for me, especially here with Soul Paint, what is the most gratifying for me with this one is, normally I have to push a lot of things myself, because we're a small company and we're in a art form that is pretty young. So there's no infrastructure. Like I'm the maker, the director, the producer, and the distributor myself. But with this one, this is actually the backbone of this project is Sarah's project, which is my producer on Deep. And to be able to take my thing, which I wanted to develop further together with Improvive, the technical partner I made it with, and just give it to Sarah and let it be enmeshed in this bigger thing, with all her connections and producing powers behind it, has been a breath of fresh air for me, that I can go back to just observing player behavior and coming up with fun interactions without having to worry like, oh shit, and when do I start the social media campaign, and which festivals and I'm going to submit to. So yeah, that's been a nice change of pace of learning to make that web bigger, something we started to learn with working together with GEMLab, and now we're trying to take further.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Niki. I think that's pretty much all about the time that we have today, but we've enjoyed your presentation and your answers so much. I'm sure I can also speak on behalf of Joanneke and hopefully the viewers at home. So thanks for taking the time to talk to us about what you're working on, and actually, where can people find out more about you or what you're working on?
That is a good question. Here is the slide still in view? There we go. So we're on Twitter, but actually we don't do a lot with Twitter. I think most of our stuff can be found on Facebook and Instagram, and of course our website. And for Explore Deep, oh, now we're going into, I should have an Explore Deep slide here somewhere.
So if you can reshare your slide, Niki, then folks at home can see the links.
Oh, I'm not sharing yet. Am I?
No, not yet.
Oh, I thought you said yes. Okay, that is a faux pas. Here we go.
Yes.
So this is our deep information. Take a screenshot.
Take a picture, it'll last longer.
Yeah, and then I'll go back up. And this is where Monobanda lives.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So yeah, you can stop sharing your screen again. And yeah, if the viewers at home, if you want to learn more about the GEMLab and the work that we do there, you could also check out our website, which is gemlab.com. Or you can follow us on all social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we have a website, and you can find all of those in the description below. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in today to this inaugural first GEMH session. Please remember to fill in the short feedback survey. We'll repost the link shortly in the YouTube chat. It was super helpful for us if you have any tips or anything you want to hear more about in the future. We'll be back with another session in about 3 months. So please subscribe to our channel and to our social media to stay updated on what we do next. Thanks so much and have a great weekend, and see you all next time.
See you all next time.